Hey, long time no see, wife of the cheating husband. Still alive? Still as ugly as ever, I see. Hey, is Baxter breathing? I heard he collapsed. As you can see, I'm alive and well. So, what brings you here all of a sudden? I responded to the two who appeared after 3 years without hiding my disgust. I thought having my husband taken by another woman was a common story, but I never imagined it would be my own mom. My name is Elizabeth. Just an ordinary office worker you can find anywhere. I don't have any special skills or talents, but the one thing I could always boast about since I was young was that my mom was young. My parents had an age gap marriage with a 20-year difference. Dad was the hot older guy type, dashing and handsome, and even to me, his daughter, he seemed to grow more attractive with age. Mom fell for Dad, saying age didn't matter, and passionately expressed her feelings, leading to an early marriage. Soon after, I was born. Mom was a young mother to begin with, but she looked even younger than her age, so much so that people often mistook us for sisters. I took pride in my mom's youth and beauty, secretly feeling proud every time we were mistaken for siblings. Dad had a job that required frequent travel, so while he earned a good income, he was rarely home. Mom and I spent a lot of time just the two of us, growing closer and closer, almost like sisters. Eventually, I grew up, got married, and moved out. My husband, Dakari, has been my childhood friend since kindergarten. We went to the same schools from kindergarten through high school. He often came over to my house as a kid, and our families were close. We had been close as brothers since we were little. That friendship stayed the same even when we became high school students. The change in our relationship happened one day during high school. Dakari, who always came to my house to play, was there again that day. We were like best friends who could talk about anything, even giving each other romantic advice. Around this time, Dakari often said, "The person I like might not even notice someone like me. I'm scared to act and ruin our current relationship. I feel ignored and can't confess my feelings." I thought that day would be just another day of receiving romantic advice from him. I asked Dakari, "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Who looked more serious than usual. Then, with a nervous expression, he told me, "Actually, the person I like is you, Elizabeth. I'm sorry for hiding my feelings until now. If you're okay with it, please go out with me." For me, who had always seen him as a boy, his confession felt like a dream come true. Of course. "Yes, thank you," my answer was. And so, we went from just childhood friends to lovers. Our relationship progressed smoothly after that. Even though we went to different universities, we stayed in touch regularly, so I never felt anxious. Since our homes were close, sometimes when I returned from university, he would already be at my house, eating my mom's cooking. Dakari was a friendly person and got along well with my parents. As university students, we started hanging out with our friends in groups, and it was nice to make new friends through those connections. He was close with my parents and friends. I dreamed of marrying him one day, and he made that dream come true. When we became working adults, Dakari proposed to me right away. "I can't imagine marrying anyone but you, Elizabeth. Even though we are just starting our careers and there might be uncertainties, I will always support you. Please marry me." When he said that, I was overjoyed. I naturally accepted his proposal, and we got married. Fortunately, many friends came to our wedding and gave us lots of congratulations. Some friends cried with joy for us, but the one who cried the most was my mom. "Mom, you're crying too much." But my mom's crying was not just tears but loud sobs. My dad had to support her as she could barely stand, looking quite troubled. I felt a sense of unease about her tears. Can someone cry that much out of joy? Even if it was her daughter's wedding, it wasn't normal to cry that loudly. And it seemed like my mom's eyes were not on me but on Dakari. I was puzzled, but the wedding ended successfully with everyone's blessings. Talking to my mom after the wedding, she was back to her usual self, so I decided to think that my unease was just my imagination. After that, Dakari and I rented an apartment near my parents' house and started our newlywed life. Once the wedding was over, daily life resumed. We took a short break for the wedding and honeymoon, but work started without mercy. However, even the lazy mornings where we didn't want to go to work were fun during our newlywed life. The days leading up to the wedding were often hectic, but now we could finally relax and take things easy. As I was settling into a calmer lifestyle and preparing dinner after work. Lexi is probably alone today too, right? Why don't we go to your parents' place for dinner? Dakari suggested. Mom is a great cook and can whip up delicious meals quickly. Feeling tired from work and missing Mom's cooking, I decided to accept his suggestion and called her. She answered the phone right away. Hello? What's the matter? And asked. I explained that Dakari suggested we have dinner at her place, and she seemed delighted. Baxter isn't home today either. It's boring eating alone, so please come over. I'll make plenty of Dakari's favorite dishes. Grateful for Mom's offer, we headed to her house. Dad was still away on a long business trip, and I felt that Mom must indeed be lonely in that big house by herself. Lexi, your cooking is always so delicious. Thank you. Please eat as much as you like. Dakari had been close with my family since childhood, and he always called my mom Lexi. Initially, he called her Auntie, but Mom, being young, didn't like that and made him call her Lexi instead. Watching him eat happily, Mom said with a smile, "It's lonely eating alone, so I'm glad you came. Feel free to come over anytime." After expressing our gratitude to Mom, we went home that night. From then on, whenever Dad was away, we often went back to Mom's place for dinner to keep her company. On nights when I worked late due to overtime, drinks gatherings, or hanging out with friends, Dakari would go to Mom's place alone and have dinner with her. Given their long-standing relationship, I never thought much of it. One day, I told Dakari, "Dakari, I'm sorry. I'll be working late tomorrow, so I think I'll be home late. You can go to bed first if you want." "Oh, really? Okay." Dakari replied casually while fiddling with his smartphone, not really paying attention to what I was saying. Lately, he had been like this all the time. He never put down his smartphone, always responding half-heartedly to my conversations. It seemed like he was constantly checking notifications and sometimes smiling at his phone alone. Although it bothered me, I didn't want to nag him about his smartphone usage, even as his wife, so I kept quiet and endured it. Dakari then said, "I'm going to take a bath." I saw him off and continued watching TV. Suddenly, Dakari's smartphone, which he had left on the living room table, lit up with a notification sound. Instinctively, I glanced at his phone. It was a message from WhatsApp. "Let's love each other again tomorrow," with Mom's icon saying. I was confused. I couldn't understand what was happening, so I looked at the phone screen closely, but it was definitely Mom's icon. What? Love each other? No, it must be some kind of mistake, right? I couldn't comprehend why Mom would send such a message to him, so I decided to let it go for the time being. 2 days later. My job had hit its busy season, and even that day, I came home late after working overtime, finding the house completely dark. After grabbing a quick dinner, taking a shower, and getting ready for bed, I headed to the bedroom where Dakari was sleeping soundly. I couldn't help but notice his smartphone thrown carelessly beside him. Dakari had received a mysterious message from Mom's icon. Though I couldn't believe it, I couldn't stop myself from checking. I carefully picked up his smartphone, making sure not to wake him. His lock screen number had always been his birthday. A secret only I knew because I was his childhood friend. Easily bypassing the lock screen, I opened WhatsApp to see Mom's chat history at the top. I checked the chat and was left speechless. Last night was great. Hold me again. I'm looking forward to it. That was the message Dakari had received from Mom. Hold? Wait, does this mean Dakari and Mom have been betraying me together? Overwhelmed by disbelief, I screamed and threw the smartphone, waking Dakari. Rubbing his sleepy eyes. What's wrong? Did something happen? Is there a bug or something? Dakari lazily asked. His carefree attitude pushed my confusion into full-blown anger. It's not what's wrong. I saw the WhatsApp with Mom. What the hell is going on? What kind of relationship do you two have? I can't believe it. Explain yourself. Picking up his smartphone again, I shoved the incriminating WhatsApp from Mom in his face. Oh. Dakari, looking annoyed, simply said. I thought he might make some excuse, but instead, if it's out, then it's out. I've been seeing Lexi for a long time. He casually admitted. What? What do you mean you've been seeing her? I felt a wave of despair as if the world went dark before my eyes. Dakari and Mom have been betraying me? Dakari and Mom are together? So that means, of course, he's been sleeping with Mom too? Is that even possible? As I stood there in shock, he started an unnecessary explanation. I was close with you, but it didn't feel like a romantic relationship, you know? Ever since I was aware, it wasn't you I was interested in, it was Lexi. I always admired Lexi and visited your house to see her. So, Dakari, you were visiting me just to see Mom? Exactly. He nodded at my astonished question. I threw a pillow at him, yelling. What the hell? Since when did this relationship start? Dakari swatted away the pillow with one hand and replied. Since high school. Lexi said to me, Dakari, you like me, don't you? And that's when it started. Dating you was just a cover to be with Lexi. So, your feelings for me were a lie from the start. Well, that's how it is. Dakari said this with a nonchalant expression, and I couldn't hold back any longer. As tears streamed down my face, he coldly said, Now that it's out, let's get a divorce. I want to be with Lexi. The night he said that, I quickly packed my bags and left the house. I couldn't go to my parents' house because my mom was there, so I had no choice but to stay at a business accommodation for a while. I decided to talk to my dad and Dakari's parents about the relationship between Dakari and my mom. Naturally, everyone was furious. A meeting was arranged with me and my parents, Dakari, and his parents, but we were all speechless when my mom naturally took the seat next to Dakari. Dakari boldly stated, The one I want to make happy is Lexi. So, from now on, I'm going to live with her. At this, Dakari's mom burst into tears. How pathetic. You promised to make Elizabeth happy. You can't be happy after betraying someone like that. But it seemed he was unmoved by his mom's words. Dakari. Even so, I love Lexi. Firmly said. His dad then declared, If you do such a thing, it's estrangement. We don't need such a disgraceful son anymore. Dakari nodded. That's fine. And said. Although his parents persistently tried to persuade him afterwards, there was no response. Finally, when Dakari's parents had given up, my dad, who had been silent, spoke to my mom. "Lexi, are you really going to live with Dakari? No one will bless you. You will regret it." Although my dad spoke quietly, his voice was full of anger. My mom leaned on Dakari, hearing my dad's words. "Oh no, I'm scared. No one is on our side." "Don't worry, I'll always be on Lexi's side. Let's be happy together." Seeing my mom and Dakari gazing at each other, I felt nauseous. It felt like I was being shown a cheap drama scene, and as I wore a pained expression, he handed me the completed divorce papers. "So, Elizabeth, divorce me." I was definitely going to divorce such a disgusting person without being asked. When I silently signed the divorce papers that were handed to me, my mom let out a cheer of joy. "Yay! Now finally he is mine." "Oh, but I'm not breaking up with Baxter. He is 20 years older than me, so he'll die first, and I need to make sure I get his assets when that happens." Dakari and my mom, as if their conversation was over, picked up the divorce papers and left. After Dakari's parents left with a full apology, I cried to my dad in frustration. "Dad, wasn't it better to divorce Mom? If things stay like this, won't Mom take your money if something happens to you? I don't want that." My dad held my crying shoulder and comforted me, saying, "It's okay. I have a good plan. From now on, let's live happily together." After that, my dad and I were busy. Since Dakari had told me, "Move out immediately," I hurriedly moved out during the times he wasn't around. When I realized that the fun newlywed life I had was all an illusion I had been seeing, I felt utterly empty. I ended up being depressed for a while after that. Knowing that I had been continuously betrayed by my mom and husband, I wasn't mentally strong enough to stay cheerful. But thanks to the encouragement of my dad, friends, and the people around me, I gradually started to regain my strength. Then, 3 years had passed since Dakari and Mom left. I was still living with Dad in our old family home. Life with Dad was peaceful and calm, and I was content with this life. However, there were those who were determined to shatter this peace. Yes. Dakari and Mom. One holiday morning, I was doing household chores when the doorbell rang. Dad, now older and unable to easily get up, stayed put, so I went to the door to see who it was. When I opened the door, there stood Mom and Dakari. Dakari looked at me and sneered. "Hey, Fatso, still alive? Long time no see, but you're still as ugly as ever." Unable to hide my disgust, I responded, "As you can see, I'm alive and well. What do you want, showing up out of nowhere?" Mom began looking around the house, her eyes darting. "Hey, is Baxter still breathing? I heard he collapsed." Dad had suddenly fallen ill last year and was now confined to a wheelchair. I had informed Mom about Dad's condition. "Did you come to check on Dad because you're worried about him?" The doctors had told us that Dad didn't have much time left. I had also told Mom about this, so I thought she came to show concern for her elderly husband, but apparently that was not the case. Mom laughed crudely. No. I just came to see if it was time to get my inheritance yet. I'll just come on in." "Hey, wait a minute." Before I could stop them, Mom and Dakari walked right in as if they owned the place. In the living room, Dad, who must have overheard the conversation, glared at Mom and Dakari from his wheelchair. "Baxter, so you're really in a wheelchair now? When are you going to finally kick the bucket? Don't say such horrible things," I shouted, unable to contain myself at Mom's cruelty. "It's okay." But Dad said. Dad seemed more exasperated than angry at Mom and Dakari. "Actually, we came to ask for a lifetime gift." We know Baxter has quite a bit of money. We're still married, so he should give us a generous amount, right? Mom said, clinging to Dakari's arm, and Dad let out a deep sigh. Of course, I'm not giving you anything. There's no way I would. When Dad said that. Please! We need the money. Dakari pleaded. Why did they need so much money? Dakari's salary shouldn't have been that low. Why do you need so much money? Did you waste it all? I asked bluntly, and Dakari answered. Actually, I got fired. I'm unemployed now. So, we really need the money. At that moment, I thought maybe there was a God. He was facing retribution. Payback for betraying Dad and me. Mom. Please, Baxter. You understand the situation now, right? Give us a lifetime gift. She whined, but Dad shook his head firmly. No way I'm giving you anything. We're not even really married anymore. What? I never signed any divorce papers. I'm your true wife. Mom exclaimed in shock, but Dad calmly replied. You did. Decades ago. A long time ago. Back when I used to frequent bars. Oh. Mom seemed to remember. A long time ago, Dad had foolishly spent time at bars. Mom was furious about that. It seems that there was a time when she handed Dad divorce papers. Apparently, Dad kept those divorce papers, and right after Mom left with Dakari, Dad filled out his section and submitted the divorce papers. As a result, Dad and Mom were no longer husband and wife. They had become strangers. You kept those old divorce papers. Why would you do something so selfish? This is the worst. So, you're saying we can't do the lifetime gift? What does that even mean? What are we supposed to do now? I want to praise my past self for keeping those divorce papers. No, Lexi, I want to praise you. Thank you for writing those divorce papers back then. And although it's hard to say since we're out of money, as the costs of infidelity, we intend to seek compensatory damages from both of you, so be prepared. Dad laughed gleefully as Mom and Dakari raged with anger. Mom and Dakari turned pale at Dad's words, and Dakari asked me, Is this true? In a trembling voice. I stood there with my arms crossed and said, It's true. Realize the gravity of your sins. Mom and Dakari left the house with shaky steps, clearly upset. After that, I spent peaceful days taking care of Dad. Since childhood, Dad had been on frequent business trips, and we had little time together. To make up for that lost time, I now cherished the time spent with Dad. Mom and Dakari took out loans to pay the compensation from the divorce trial to me and Dad. But it seems they borrowed money from the wrong people and are now missing. Honestly, I don't even know if they are alive. Apparently, Dakari's parents were the last to cry and cling to him, but since they had cut ties, they had no one to turn to. A few years later, one day, I got a call from Dakari. I felt uneasy but answered the phone. Hey, Elizabeth? Long time no see. How about we get back together? I was out of my mind back then. I was crazy about young and hot Lexi when I was a kid, but now she's just an auntie. I don't even want to touch her. You're the same age now as Lexi was when I was crazy about her, right? You must be really sexy now. Let's meet up. What? Are you an idiot? Your intentions are obvious. Come on. It's no big deal. Where are you now? I'll come see you. Screw off, useless man. I'm happily remarried. Don't interfere. What? Are you serious? How could you get remarried without my permission? Hey! I hung up on him mid-conversation and blocked his number. Yes, the year after I divorced Dakari, I remarried an older man through a friend's introduction. He's a very kind person who told me he'd heal all my past troubles. And I'm expecting his child, so I'll soon be a mom myself. My current husband also welcomed Dad to live with us, and we are living happily together. Dad is looking forward to becoming a grandfather. I intend to cherish this peaceful, everyday life and continue living happily. My overly kind-hearted husband has been sending money to his parents for 20 years under the guise of filial piety. Even though our household finances are tight, we've never received a single word of thanks. Instead, we hear cold remarks like, "What do you think you can do with just $1,000? And recently, I discovered a shocking truth. That money was secretly being funneled to my sister-in-law Carol. If you buy us a new house, we'll stop asking for money," they said, ignoring my husband's kindness and making unreasonable demands. I finally exploded with anger. Fine. We'll buy you a house. My name is Ashley, and I'm 49 years old. I married my husband Elliot 24 years ago when I was 25. Despite many ups and downs, we're still a happy couple. We recently talked about enjoying our time together now that the kids are grown. But there is a significant issue. Both Elliot and I want to save for our retirement, but the biggest obstacle is the money Elliot sends to his parents. For 20 years, he has been sending them money every month. And it's not a small amount, it's $1,000. It's a significant amount of money. If we were wealthy, it might be different, but we both work and still don't have much leeway. Especially when the kids were younger, it was tough. During those difficult times, I asked if we could reduce or stop the payments. But they got furious, accusing us of abandoning them. Even when I explained that our children's education expenses were high, they didn't understand. You owe everything to us. Your marriage, your children, it's all because of us. You ungrateful brats. While not entirely wrong, did they really need to hold it over our heads like that? How many times have I heard that? Elliot said he would handle it, but we're partners. I took on the task of sending the money, asking Elliot to manage our household finances. Elliot strongly opposed it, but since I earned a little more, I decided to bear the burden. We've somehow managed to get by financially. Even though I've been yelled at by his parents, they have never once thanked me. Your income exists for us. Be grateful for how we raised you and send us money. Your useless self managed to get married thanks to us. They constantly say terrible things to Elliot. Are they really his parents? Sometimes I get angrier than him. But Elliot just laughs it off, saying, "They've always been like this." Seeing him so resigned breaks my heart. Even though Elliot doesn't stand up to his parents, I can't complain as his wife, so I've spent 20 years silently suffering. If only his sister Carol supported the payments, it would be easier if we split the cost. Unlike him, Carol has never been berated by their parents. On the contrary, she's adored for being beautiful and kind. She's just like me when I was young, says Susan, his mother. She's a blessing just by being born, says Jeff, his father. The stark contrast in treatment infuriates me. But once again, Elliot calms me down, so I've never lashed out. Isn't he too kind? I fell in love with his kindness, but he should be angrier. Elliot takes his role as the eldest son too seriously. No one cares about that anymore. I've heard him tell our son not to worry about taking care of us in the future. Maybe because he's suffered so much, he doesn't want our son to go through the same. Elliot might understand, but I don't. At least once, I wanted Susan to express her gratitude to Elliot. When we were alone, I asked her about the money he sends. Could you occasionally express your thanks to Elliot? About the money he sends. Could you occasionally express your thanks to Elliot? Susan looked completely baffled. Then she said, "Why should I thank my son for sending money to his parents? It's what he's supposed to do. Why should I thank my son for sending money to his parents? It's what he's supposed to do." She couldn't understand what I was saying at all. In fact, she seemed to think I was the one being unreasonable. I was absolutely stunned by her reaction. I was truly at a loss for words. But for her daughter, Carol, she would express gratitude for even the smallest things. Despite being so busy, she still comes to visit us. What a thoughtful and kind daughter she is. By the way, Carol visits her parents' home maybe once a year, usually for just a day. In contrast, we visit at least once a month and are frequently summoned for various tasks. Typically, we are asked to do this and that, and never once have we been thanked. Isn't such blatant favoritism shocking? However, judging from his demeanor, it seems he has been treated this way for a long time. Supporting his stories, the photo album showed a young Elliot with a sad expression. His clothes were often hand-me-downs or ill-fitting. In contrast, Carol always wore pretty, neat clothes. There were no birthday photos of Elliot, but lavish photos of Carol's birthdays were pasted in his album. He was told he had to attend public high school and wouldn't be given any money for college, so he used scholarships to get through. In contrast, Carol was allowed to go to any high school she wanted, entering a private one. She was also given money for college, but partied too much and dropped out without graduating. Her parents didn't scold her at all and just dismissed it with a "well, it can't be helped." Meanwhile, they told Elliot it was foolish to go to college if he had to repay scholarships. Moreover, Elliot was made to send money to his parents, while no demands were placed on Carol. Not that she could afford to send money, as she quit jobs easily, couldn't hold even part-time work, and ended up unemployed. Despite this, her parents still adored her. When I went to introduce myself before our wedding, Elliot's mother said, "Please give our daughter an allowance every month," leaving me speechless. After Carol got married and moved out, Elliot was commanded to send money to his parents, leaving me dumbfounded. Despite all this, Elliot didn't abandon his parents, which I found commendable rather than pitiful. Still, as someone not related by blood, I couldn't suggest cutting ties. It's a delicate and complicated issue that has long troubled me. Even during the difficult times of raising our children, Elliot continued sending money. He truly deserves some appreciation. But no matter what I say or do, Elliot's parents never express any gratitude. They firmly believe they deserve the money. One day, Susan called. Usually, his parents are completely indifferent to our lives. They don't care even when we have children. Their only concern is the money. Our children naturally grew distant from such grandparents. Whenever they contacted us, it was always for some favor or additional money. Hearing my phone ring, I had a bad feeling but reluctantly answered. "Hello. Hey. What's going on with this month's money?" Without even a greeting, Susan started right away. I sighed at her usual rudeness, unable to show her my angry eyes. "Payments are always on the 30th. That's tomorrow," I replied. But Susan said, "I don't care about that. Add $500 more this month." "What? You mean $1,500? That's a bit." As soon as I hesitated, Susan snapped. "What do you think parents are?" she yelled. Well, this is typical. She thinks that if she intimidates me, I'll comply. But after 24 years of marriage, I'm used to their attitude. What do I think of parents? parents are parents. Then just send the money. No, I am sending money. I said, increase it. No, I'm telling you we can't. Increase it. No, no way. She must have sensed my light laughter because she snapped. This is pointless. And hung up. I thought I handled it sincerely, but I guess it didn't come through. Talking over the phone is hard. That evening, I told him about the call. You're the only one who can stand up to Mom like that. You're quite the innocent one. He chuckled. Innocent? I'm not being innocent. I'm just saying what he can't. If we increase it once, they'll keep asking for the same. We need to save for our own future, so make sure you refuse. Yeah, I get it. He nodded, but he seemed worried. And his worry was justified. Dad said to make it $1,500 from next month. Elliot told me. I couldn't help but exclaim. I knew it. You didn't agree, did you? I told him it was impossible. What did your dad say? He said, your kids are grown, so you should have extra money. What do you think parents are for? I can picture his face saying that. Ha ha ha. It's not funny. I glared at him, and he stopped laughing. Absolutely refuse. Yeah. But a few days later, on a holiday, his parents showed up early in the morning, leading to a mild argument. Increase the payment, you devil wife. Apparently, they thought I was the reason the payment increase was stopped. So, I handed Susan a lit incense stick. Here you go. What's this? Use the smoke to drive away the devil wife. Susan blew the smoke right at my face. Just because I said you could use it doesn't mean you should aim at my face. I blew some smoke back at her, saying, Susan's a devil too. Ah. Stop it. It's fine. While Susan and I had fun with our little devil exorcism game, Elliot and Jeff had a serious conversation. Why do you need so much money? You should still have your retirement fund and get pensions. Elliot asked. With rising prices, it's not enough. Jeff replied. We need to save for our own retirement too. Elliot said. What retirement? First, you should worry about your parents' retirement. Jeff yelled. Like Susan, Jeff thought yelling would get his point across. Elliot has faced unreasonable treatment like this since he was a child. Blowing smoke at Susan, I cheered for him in my heart. Maybe my encouragement worked because Elliot stood firm. It's not possible. If you really need money, ask Carol. Oh, that's a fair point. I thought, feeling impressed. But Susan retaliated by blowing smoke in my face, so I fanned it away with a newspaper. Jeff, however, got inexplicably angry. You can't ask Carol for help. You can't ask Carol for help. She's struggling, so we thought we'd send her some money. Oh, no. Have you ever heard such a foreboding oh, no? Wait, what does that mean? I looked at Susan in shock. Elliot was also frozen in surprise. What does that mean? Were you giving our money to Carol? Elliot asked directly. What's the problem? We can do whatever we want with the money. It's my Ashley's money, right? What's mine is mine. I can spend it however I like. Then I might as well send the money directly to Carol. Why are you taking credit? Carol doesn't even know the money is from us, does she? Of course not. A father wants to look good to his daughter. Don't mess with me. Elliot couldn't take it anymore and got angry. All this time, we had been sending money for his parents. Even though it came from my salary, it was essentially our family's money. We couldn't go on vacations as a couple because we had to save to send them money. This was too much. Tears finally welled up in his eyes. These tears were more out of frustration than sadness. As his wife, I understood his feelings well. Elliot had always been treated differently from his sister. Despite that, he continued to send money for his parents, only to find out it was for their daughter. No wonder even the mild-mannered Elliot was angry. He silently cried, overwhelmed by the shock. I placed a gentle hand on his back and glared fiercely at his parents. You two are too much. For 20 years, we've been sending you money. You've treated Elliot terribly while favoring Carol, and you never even thanked us. And now you want more? This is outrageous. There was no need to hold back anymore. For Elliot's sake, I needed to be clear. Instead of being worried, they laughed. Pretending to be high and mighty over a mere $1,000. They probably believed their kind son would never abandon them. And they weren't entirely wrong. But Elliot had me, his precious wife, beside him. Susan laughed at my glare. Your father is right. Acting high and mighty over $1,000. If you want to talk, why don't you buy us a new house first? What? Do that, and we'll never ask for money again. But you can't, can you? So the increase is non-negotiable. Fine. I'll do it. What? To dismiss Susan's unreasonable demand, I nodded. They were still puzzled. Fine. We'll buy you a house. Really? They were astonished by my words. Elliot looked at me in shock too. Please don't look at me like that. It's not a big deal. I thought, smiling confidently. A few months later, we invited them to their new house. Here it is, your new home. This will be your final residence, I said with a big smile as I showed them around. It was a very large house. It was a single-story house, but it was more than enough for a couple. What is this? Susan's voice was full of astonishment. I spread my arms proudly. Look at this vast property. A garage that can fit multiple cars. You can turn it into a farm, focus on gardening, or even raise a bunch of animals like goats. Wait, hold on. And the size of this house. Look at this. It even has a fireplace. Wait, hold on. And the best part is this mountain behind and the clear stream nearby. Jeff can gather firewood from the mountain, and Susan can do laundry by the river. Wait! This house was built over 200 years ago, with no electricity or gas. It's the perfect place to enjoy the lifestyle of those times. Wait! Susan, her face turning red, interrupted my increasingly excited speech. What is it, Susan? There's no need to get so excited. You're the one who's excited. First of all, where is this place? It's a house deep in the mountains. When I proudly looked at Susan, she was dumbfounded for a moment before realizing and yelling. Why did you find such an inconvenient place? And what is this old house? I was expecting a new house since you said you were building one, but this is clearly used. What are you talking about? We rebuilt it using all the old materials. It's a new house. So, you dismantled an old house that couldn't be lived in and rebuilt it with the materials? It can be lived in now, so there's no problem. No. At least get gas and electricity installed. Why? Why? You! Susan looked at me with a face of utter defeat. What? You said to build a house, so I did. Why are you dissatisfied? I'm only dissatisfied. What extravagant people, I thought, looking at Elliot. Elliot had a very complicated smile. But the deal was that if we gave you a house, the payments would stop, right? What? What? No what? Jeff, is that okay? When you said a new house, I thought you meant a brand new house with new walls and modern facilities. Isn't this a newly built house? I glared at Jeff, indicating not to argue about the details. He fell silent. We can't live here. Just take us back to our old home. Jeff looked stunned, and Susan was yelling. I laughed and said, It's okay. What's okay? Nothing is okay. In gratitude for reusing this house in such a remote mountain area, the previous owner left behind a lot of furniture. You can start living here immediately. Oh. And the vegetables in the field behind the house are ready for harvest. What? So, let's be self-sufficient. What? Susan, living here will make you healthier. This house definitely has a guardian spirit, and your luck will improve. A guardian spirit? Are you serious? I'm always serious. When I said it clearly, she looked very displeased. Why? It's a 30-minute walk to the bus stop from here. With that, I left with Elliot. I'm so happy they were moved to tears. I'm glad we splurged and bought the house. The land was a bargain, and the previous owner covered the reconstruction costs. They must have been touched. Elliot whispered, Your innocence is scary. But I pretended not to hear. Anyway, I fulfilled his parents' wish by buying them a house. It's not perfect, but it's livable, so it should be fine. Finally, the payments would stop, and we could start saving for ourselves. Happy. One day, I got a call. It was from Jeff. What is this all about? He yelled suddenly. What is all this about, really? It seemed his parents couldn't adapt to life in the mountains and eventually returned to their old house. Well, that's their choice, and they're free to do as they please. I tried to sell that house to get some money, but it won't sell, he said. Well, given its location, it won't be easy to find a buyer. That's not the issue. I spoke with a realtor, and there's a market for people who dream of country living. There's interest. Oh, really? It seems there are people who want to retire quietly in the countryside or to escape the exhaustion of city life. But it still wouldn't sell, and Jeff was yelling. What's going on? It's not even in my name. Of course not. I could imagine Jeff's face turning red on the other end of the line. I lowered my voice, feeling like he was saying something absurd. What? Did you intentionally put the house in your name? Yes, the house in the mountains we bought for them is actually in my name. I don't see what's so strange about that. Is there something wrong with that? Of course there is. That house is mine, right? So why isn't it in my name? Because I bought it. What? It's in the purchaser's name. What's strange about that? What's strange about it? What? Jeff's voice was filled with despair. It's really puzzling. I tilted my head. I bought the house and allowed you to live there. It's a simple matter. I asked you to buy it. So I did. No, I mean... I could feel Jeff's frustration over the phone. But honestly, I didn't understand what he was saying. Originally, Jeff wasn't involved in negotiating or signing any documents for the house. Why did he think it would be in his name? It's odd. Anyway, change the name to mine immediately. I'll sell that inconvenient house. Why? Living with the house spirits is a rare opportunity. There are no house spirits. If there were, I'd want to live there even less. What a luxurious complaint. I can't understand the problem with living in a rent-free, mortgage-free house. You want to give money to Carol, right? Then a mountain house with low utility costs is perfect. That's right, Carol. Carol is another problem. Jeff suddenly raised his voice, remembering something. She asked for help with a down payment on a new house. Ah, I see. What does that have to do with us? Elliot is fed up with his parents' blatant favoritism. Carol, expecting her parents' support, has become estranged from Elliot. So I don't care about her situation. Help her if you want. I plan to sell the mountain house for the money, but that plan is ruined. You take responsibility and prepare the money. No! I immediately refused and hung up. The phone rang again. Annoyed, I answered, and Jeff shouted, "If you refuse, put the house in my name." Again, I responded, "No." He kept calling, demanding money or a name change. Each time, I firmly said no until Jeff, on the verge of tears, begged, "Please, give me the money." Matching his tone, I also tearfully replied, "No." After that, the phone call stopped. That night, Elliot came home from work, laughing as he told me that his parents called the office, asking him to do something about his innocent wife. Of course, I have no intention of doing anything. Elliot smiled. However, they started sending letters and visiting our house, persistently asking for the house, money, or a name change. So I finally said, "I will give you a brand new house this time." And the constant demands stopped. Some time later, Elliot and I visited his parents' home. "This time, it's really a brand new house, right?" they asked, and I nodded firmly. "Yes, I built it myself." Jeff looked satisfied and exchanged a glance with Susan. Well. By the way, where is it? We don't want another house deep in the mountains. Don't worry. You can place it anywhere you like, in the city or wherever you prefer. Anywhere we like, what do you mean? Jeff couldn't understand what I was saying and asked again, with a puzzled look on his face. So, you can place it anywhere you like? I repeated. Place it? What does that mean? As they both tilted their heads in confusion, I placed the package I had secretly brought in front of them. What is this? Susan screamed at its size. This is a house that will surely excite you, Mom. Huh? I opened the large package. What appeared was a big mansion, in miniature. What is this? A dollhouse? Really? Jeff was astonished. Susan's eyes widened. I puffed out my chest proudly at the stunned pair. Isn't it amazing? I made this. What? I'm good at crafts. Making dioramas is my hobby. What? This is a genuine house I built. Please accept it. What? A dollhouse that would make any little girl overjoyed. I thought I did a pretty good job, and they were both speechless. I'm glad you love it so much you're at a loss for words. Especially you, Mom. Enjoy playing with it and feel young again. Leaving the two at a loss for words, Elliot and I left his parents' house. They seemed pleased. I'm glad, I said to Elliot, who once again remarked, "Your innocence is terrifying." Innocent? That's rude, it's all intentional. I didn't say that out loud but stuck my tongue out in my mind. After that, they continued to contact us about various things, but we ignored them all. Even when they showed up at our house, we continued to ignore them, and eventually, they stopped. Then, one day, a relative called. Apparently, his parents were in financial trouble and begging for money from everyone. It turned out they had sold their previous house to help Carol with her new home to impress her. They were supposed to move in with her, but lost contact as soon as they gave her the money. In other words, they were used by Carol. Like parent, like child. I wondered if Elliot was a genetic anomaly. Abandoned by their daughter and cut off by their son and his wife, they were left to beg from relatives who turned them down. In the end, they returned to the house in the mountains. Well, at least it's a shelter from the rain. I'm glad the house I bought served its purpose in an unexpected way. As for Carol, deceiving her own parents was indeed a devilish act, and it seems God noticed. Pampered and spoiled by her parents, she ended up divorced after a big fight with her husband. The reason for the fight was her infidelity. The money her parents gave her was actually used for her affair. Once again, like parent, like child. It's a mystery how Elliot turned out to be such a decent person. Maybe it's because he wasn't properly raised by those parents. Carol, with nowhere to go, moved in with her parents in the mountain house. However, there's no way the spoiled daughter and those eccentric parents could get along well. Carol, who has never worked a proper job, now relies solely on her parents' pension for a poor living. As for me, I'm free from the curse of those dreadful payments and liberated from Elliot's parents' influence, feeling like I can finally breathe deeply for the first time in a while. With some financial freedom, Elliot and I excitedly planned a trip, looking through piles of travel brochures. Ashley, I'm sorry for everything. Thank you, Elliot said, surprising me. Seeing his relieved face, I nodded with a smile. Let's spend a joyful retirement together, my love. His gentle smile, which I love so much, beamed brightly. With crescent-shaped pupils and a magnificent beard. A large mouth that constantly moves as if recalling the food eaten at noon. A clever and friendly personality that changes its bow in response to people's voices and expressions. I became completely captivated by them and visited them every day. The one who healed my heart, which had been betrayed by my husband Joshua and my sister Margaret, was a mysteriously charming white goat. I am Nancy. I am a 29-year-old nurse working at a hospital. It would be a lie to say that working early mornings and late nights isn't tough, but I am blessed with great colleagues and find my job rewarding. I have a husband, Joshua, who is 3 years older than me, and we got married 2 years ago. He works at a moderately large company, seems to be doing okay in his job, and is considered reliable and honest, which makes his boss take notice of him. Joshua has weekends off and finishes work at 5 p.m., while I have irregular shifts and days off due to early and night shifts. Even after getting married and living together, we only have meals together a few times a week. Still, I was happy to say welcome home, and I'm home, to Joshua, and I was comforted by seeing him enjoy my homemade meals. On the other hand, he is extremely lonely. He feels lonely when he comes home and I'm not there. It was him who quickly wanted to get married after we started dating. He couldn't stand living alone. Despite being bigger than me, he is like a child in how he gets lonely, which is cute but also a bit troublesome. Moreover, I worry about him hanging out with his single friends on weekends when I'm not around. I've considered changing to a hospital without night shifts, but I like my current workplace and the salary is good, so I can't decide easily. Saying I want to change jobs because Joshua gets lonely feels a bit embarrassing too. I wish there was a better reason, like having a child. But what came to me was an unimaginable trigger. One day, after finishing my day shift and returning home, I found a woman with brown hair and wearing shorts sitting in front of the door. When she saw me, her eyes lit up and she hugged me. Nancy, I missed you. Huh? Margaret? It was Margaret. My younger sister by 2 years. The last time I saw Margaret was at my wedding 2 years ago. Ignoring my confusion, Margaret looked up at me with pleading eyes. Nancy, help me. My boyfriend kicked me out. Huh? Again? Hearing Margaret's confession, I held my head in my hands. Margaret is friendly and cute, but very careless. While my parents and I are relatively neat, Margaret's room is always messy. There are half-drunk water bottles lying around, her bed is used as storage, and I've seen her sleeping on clothes scattered on the floor. When we lived together at our parents' home, this drove me crazy, and we often argued. Margaret started living alone near her university after graduating from high school. Enjoying her freedom, she barely attended classes and eventually dropped out. Our furious parents terminated her apartment lease and tried to bring her back home, but having tasted freedom, Margaret didn't want to return. So she started living with boyfriends, working part-time jobs, and living carefree. Initially, her boyfriends would be smitten by cute Margaret and do everything for her, but her laziness and refusal to do housework would soon drive them away, and within a year, she would be kicked out. But she had a knack for sensing when she was about to be kicked out, and she'd usually find a new guy through swipe-based dating apps or parties, leaving before she was shown the door. However, sometimes she'd get kicked out unexpectedly, and during those times, she'd come crying to me, half forcing her way into my place until she found her next boyfriend. Even though I genuinely didn't want to get involved, I couldn't ignore the only sister I had, so I'd end up taking her in. After I got married, she started relying on our parents, and I thought I was finally free. But it seems even our parents reached their limit with her irresponsible lifestyle. With a furious look on his face, my dad told her, "Don't come back until you have a steady job and can rent a place." They even took away the keys to our parents' house. "Please, Nancy. I'm really in trouble. I'll find a new place soon. Just let me stay here until then." By new place, she meant finding a new boyfriend, of course. "You can't, Margaret. Joshua is here now. It's time for you to stand on your own." I know. Just this once, I promise." "No way." While I was struggling with Margaret's persistence, Joshua came home from work. "I'm home." "Huh? Who's this?" Margaret's eyes lit up at Joshua's arrival. "Joshua, help me." "What?" Young and cute Margaret flustered Joshua, making his face turn bright red. I had a bad feeling about this. I explained to Joshua that Margaret had broken up with her boyfriend and had nowhere to go, leaving out her habit of hopping from one man's house to another. I was too embarrassed to tell him about her irresponsibility. But perhaps that was a mistake, as Joshua seemed to sympathize with her. "Why not? It's just for a little while." As expected, Joshua decided to let her stay. Yay! "Joshua, you're the best." Margaret happily clung to Joshua's arm, and though he was surprised, he didn't seem to mind. Naturally, I panicked. I didn't want our precious life together to be invaded by the irresponsible sister. "Wait, if we let her stay here, it won't help her in the long run." "But she's in trouble. As her sister, you should help her." "That may be true, but..." "Sure, I'm her sister. But does that mean I have to take her in no matter what?" I wanted to argue, but I didn't want to disappoint the kind-hearted Joshua. "It's only until she finds a new apartment, probably just a month." "But I'm busy with work and hardly ever home. It'll be a big burden on you, Joshua." "It'll be fine. She's not a child. She can take care of herself, right?" "Yeah, I won't be a bother." "See? It'll be okay." Okay. It definitely wouldn't be okay. I knew it, but I didn't want to be the bad guy by saying no. So, reluctantly, I agreed to let Margaret stay for a month, on the condition that it was only for a month. Of course, this was a mistake. From that day, my life and relationship with Joshua began to change. To Joshua, Margaret was the perfect company for lonely nights and weekends. And for him, who only had brothers, Margaret's sweet, needy nature was irresistibly charming. On the other hand, Margaret, who neither works much nor has many friends, and has no awareness of being considerate towards me, clings to him, who dotes on her. I feel a sense of crisis as they get closer day by day, and even if I urge Margaret to find a room quickly. You're such a terrible sister to try and kick Margaret out. Joshua glares at me. Behind him, Margaret lives a luxurious, lazy life. Joshua pampers her, and since her livelihood is secured, she shows no sign of looking for a place or a man. I need to do something. But just at such times, the night shift staff is short, and I end up working through the night. I tried calling my parents to consult, but Grandma had collapsed, and they were too busy to take on any more stress. The promised month passed in no time, and 3 months after that. Joshua and Margaret naturally became intimate, and now Margaret even carries a life in her womb. It's your fault, always ignoring me for your work. The only one who really cared about me was my true love, Margaret. Holding Margaret's shoulder, he looks down at me with eyes full of hatred. Margaret gently strokes her belly and looks at me triumphantly. She took my home and my husband, and I was quickly left without a place to stay, handed settlement money out of pity. When Margaret gleefully told my parents about her pregnancy, my mom, realizing how terrible things had become for my marriage, fell into shock and took to her bed. My dad scolded her, but the punishment for a pregnant her was light. My in-laws apologized, but since his affair was with my family, it was hard to fully play the victim. I was exhausted, fed up with everything, and quit the job I supposedly loved. I returned to my hometown, nursing my endlessly apologetic mom, feeling as if my dad was avoiding me, and spent my days in a void. 1 month after returning home. As I began to think I needed to find a job here soon, a wedding invitation arrived from Margaret and Joshua. The wedding was set for right after the baby was born. Nancy, you're invited too. If you bless our happiness, he'll forgive you for what you did. So make sure you come. With that letter, which perfectly cast me as the villain, I didn't even have the energy to tear it up. I stuffed it into my bag and got into the car aimlessly. As I drove without any destination, I looked blankly outside while waiting at a red light. What is my life? I thought I had lived sincerely without hurting anyone, so why is the sloppy Margaret living better? Then, I saw a faint white shape on the overgrown embankment. A dog. It was too big for a dog, and its legs were thin. I was really curious and squinted my eyes. The creature was burying its face in the grass, seemingly eating something intently. What is that? Just as I was about to figure it out, the light turned green. I reluctantly stepped on the gas, but couldn't get that white figure out of my mind. I decided to turn around at the intersection and head back to the embankment. I parked in a nearby lot and climbed the embankment. There, I found a goat. A goat was fervently devouring the grass on the embankment. Why is there a goat here? Though it's not downtown, it's still a town with a residential area nearby. Having only seen goats on farms and in zoos, I couldn't fathom why there was a goat here. The goat paid no attention to me and simply continued to devour the grass in front of it. I couldn't take my eyes off the scene, so I sat down next to the goat and watched it eat. Then, as if the goat became curious about me, it lifted its head from the grass and looked at me with its crescent-shaped eyes. And then, for some reason, it shoved its face into my bag. Hey! Wait a minute! Panicking at the goat's strange behavior, I grabbed my bag, but the goat pulled out only an envelope. It was the wedding invitation for Margaret and Joshua. At that moment, "Hey!" someone shouted angrily. At the same time, a large man pulled the letter out of the goat's mouth. "I'm sorry about that. That's our goat, Rice." Rice? Suddenly being apologized to with the word for a carbohydrate, I was confused. Oh, Rice is the name of our pet goat. Wow, it's even chewed on it a bit. The man sighed, looking at the envelope with the goat's bite marks. It's okay. It's just a wedding invitation. But it must be really important. No, it's fine. It's for my ex-husband and sister's wedding. What? Oh. In my attempt to defend the goat, I accidentally revealed this, surprising the man. I felt like running away in embarrassment, but since he still held the envelope, I couldn't. Reluctantly, I explained the situation. The man and the goat listened quietly as I talked. His name, it turned out, was Paul. Although I had just met him, I thought he seemed like a nice person. As I was thinking that, Paul spoke up softly. Are you free right now? What? Well, yes. Then, please come with me for a bit. What? Without waiting for my reply, Paul took Rice's leash and started walking down the embankment. He then motioned for me to get into a small truck. I was hesitant to get into a vehicle with a man I had just met, but my curiosity about what this intriguing goat owner would do led me to follow him in my own car. We drove up a mountain road for about 20 minutes and arrived at a small dairy farm. Paul got out of the car, grabbed a long broom, and began gathering fallen leaves. Then he lit a fire and held out his hand to me. Give it to me. What, that? Let's burn that silly invitation. I would tell you to let the goat eat it, but paper with chemicals is bad for goats. Come on, do it while the fire's strong. But, stunned by the sudden suggestion, I was speechless, but the goat and Paul stared at me. Under their silent pressure, I decided to take the plunge. All right. The invitation I threw into the center of the bonfire made a sound and quickly burned up. The thing that had been tormenting me so much disappeared in less than a minute. I watched the fire burn steadily. It was such a simple thing to do. I murmured, and Paul said nothing beside me. That night, I received calls from various relatives. Of course, they all asked. Margaret brought the wedding invitation, but it looks like it's Nancy's husband. What's going on? So I told them. Margaret had an affair with my husband and had a child, so we divorced. You can attend the wedding if you want, but I won't be able to because a goat ate my invitation. Then, my relatives laughed. My invitation was eaten by a goat too, so I can't go. And said. Their laughter made me laugh too, and I was able to sleep soundly for. The next day, I started visiting the dairy farm where Paul worked regularly. Paul was apparently the son of the dairy farmers. His job was to take care of the dairy cows, and Rice the goat was his pet. Besides Rice, he also had goats named Bread and Noodle. Sometimes people would ask him to send the goats out to graze the grass for them. I also learned for the first time that goats can be surprisingly lonely and friendly. I grew very fond of these goats, and as I came to see them, I began helping out on the farm and eventually found myself working there as a live-in worker. From early morning until evening, I worked until I was exhausted, taking breaks to watch the goats eating grass intently. It was a completely different life from working in the city and visiting stylish cafes, but it was so enjoyable that I felt like I could take a deep breath for the first time in a long while. A few months later, Margaret called me and said, Why didn't you come? Only then did I remember that it was the day of Margaret's wedding. Oh, I couldn't come because the goat ate the invitation before I could read it. So what? Why is everyone talking about goats? Apparently, our relatives also didn't reply to the invitations because they said the goats had eaten them. The thought of goats munching on invitations made me chuckle softly. You laughed, didn't you? Sorry. You're terrible, Nancy. You ruined my wedding. I was supposed to get a lot of gifts. Seriously, did you really think you'd be celebrated after stealing Joshua from me? I saved poor him, who wasn't loved by you, Nancy. No one would believe that. Everyone knows how careless you are. Margaret couldn't respond well to my retort and growled like a dog. Joshua's parents were sensible people, so they were too ashamed to invite relatives to their son's wedding after he cheated on his wife with her sister. But he loves me more than Nancy. Yeah, good for you that he chose you. I'm busy with cow duties from morning tomorrow. Good night. What? Cows. Ignoring Margaret's confusion over the sudden mention of cows, I quickly ended the call. Then I turned off my mobile phone and started getting ready for bed. Margaret and Joshua's betrayal, which had shocked me so much, now seemed utterly unimportant. More importantly, the cows and goats waiting for me early the next morning were much more precious. The next day, after finishing my morning chores and having breakfast, I turned on my mobile phone to find a slew of missed calls from Margaret and Joshua. Ignoring them, I called the one remaining number, my mom's. With a tired voice, Mom told me the details of the wedding the day before. As Margaret had complained, all of Margaret and Joshua's relatives were absent. Even Joshua's colleagues had declined, so only Joshua's friends, who were curious, and Margaret's friends, who were unaware, attended. Margaret had few female friends and quickly got into relationships with men, so she had to reach out to people with thin connections, like former classmates from middle school, to gather enough people. These friends or classmates became uncomfortable when they learned Margaret had a shotgun wedding after cheating on her sister's husband. They stayed away from her, ate their meals silently, and quickly left. The tables were left with heaps of food and gifts, and even after changing dresses and cutting the cake, no one took a single photo. Her letter to her family and the bouquet presentation to her parents were both rejected by Margaret and Joshua's parents, leaving the wedding in an awkward state. The wedding felt more like a funeral, and with a $30,000 deficit, Margaret lost her mind. She turned to her parents for help. We've fulfilled our duty as parents. Now, you need to handle the rest on your own. And they left her to deal with it. I wish a goat would eat up my ties with Margaret. Mom chuckled. While I believe parents have a responsibility, Margaret is an adult woman. It's not right for her parents to keep taking responsibility for her. When I suggested this, her parents decided to cut ties with her. A year later, I was cleaning the barn when a rental car pulled into the parking lot. Thinking they might have mistaken it for a tourist farm, I approached. Are you really working in a place like this? Nancy. Long time no see. Margaret, Joshua. Two faces I didn't want to see in my haven emerged from the rental car. Why are you here? I asked Mom to tell me where you live, but she wouldn't. So when she wasn't home, I sneaked in and found an address on a delivery slip. Lucky me. That's breaking and entering. Don't be ridiculous. It's my parents' house. That's the kind of relationship you have to sneak in. When I laughed, her expression vanished. It's your fault, Nancy. You're the one making me look like the bad one. Calm down, Margaret. Joshua gently stopped Margaret from grabbing me. Then he spoke to me. Hey, Nancy. I'm sorry. You quit nursing because you were heartbroken after I left you, right? What? That's why you're doing this dirty, smelly job. You can't do anything without your nursing license, can you? What? What is this guy talking about? His misunderstanding is ridiculous. I chose this job because I wanted to. You don't have to be stubborn. I understand everything. So, come back. What? Come back? What does he mean by that? He isn't even divorced from Margaret. Are you saying you want to get back together? What about Margaret? Margaret is my wife. You can be my mistress. What? We talked about it. Margaret felt sorry for you, crying alone, so we thought we'd include you. Margaret needs help with the kids and the housework. Of course, you can go back to nursing. You get to be with me, and you can quit this job. It's perfect, right? It's hard to share Joshua, whom I love, but he says I'm his number one, so I'll give you a little of him. Oh, Margaret, how generous of you. Joshua looked at Margaret with delight. Was he always this crazy? Or did he go mad being with Margaret? No, maybe he was like this all along. I can't believe I was once married to this man. Nancy? Joshua and Margaret trembled as I suddenly laughed like a broken toy. After laughing, I looked at Joshua with a straight face. Are you two an idiot? Huh? I thought you were a better person, but you're this stupid? I'm so glad I divorced you. Huh? Huh? Joshua and Margaret looked at each other. I don't understand why you're hesitating. Did you really think I would cry tears of joy at your stupid suggestion? Honestly, you've really underestimated me. You're probably having trouble because your place is a mess, right? Aren't there a ton of those bugs you hate so much? How do you know that? Because Margaret can't do housework. Plus, you've been staying up late with her, haven't you? Always late for work? You used to be valued at work for your honesty, even if your performance wasn't great. But now, after cheating with your wife's sister, marrying her openly, and neglecting your work, your reputation must be terrible. He is sweating, having hit a nerve. You're the one regretting letting me go, aren't you? Too bad, because I'm having the time of my life now. No way, not when you're working in a place like this. I don't know why you're looking down on me, but taking care of you and Margaret was way less fulfilling. Plus, I have a boyfriend here whom I absolutely adore. A boyfriend? Joshua is shocked again. You're already seeing someone, right after the divorce? Your current wife stole my husband a month after breaking up with him. He is at a loss for words. Unable to rely on Joshua, Margaret loses it. Just come home already. Mom doesn't help with anything, and my mother-in-law only dotes on the kids while treating me like an enemy. I need you to clear things up, Nancy. That's all your own fault. I haven't done anything wrong. It's all because you aren't kind. She raises her hand towards me. But before she can swing it down, she loses her balance and falls. Margaret? What? A goat? Rice. It seems Rice, who appeared out of nowhere, pulled on Margaret's pristine white dress, causing her to trip. Margaret and Joshua are both stunned by the sudden appearance of the goat. Good job, Rice. You protected me. What are you talking about? Joshua, help me already. Whoa! As Joshua grabs Margaret's hand, he loses his balance and falls too. This causes Margaret to fall face first into the ground as well. Bread! Noodle! The two goats look at us while chewing on Joshua's shirt. Both of them are now covered in mud from the wet ground. What is this? What is this? Rice looks into Margaret's face as she screams. Seeing the goat's long, horizontal pupils and prominent teeth up close, she's completely terrified. Come to think of it, Margaret has been afraid of animals ever since she was chased by a sheep on a rooftop years ago. Stop it! Don't eat me! Margaret pleads with Rice, her face pale. Go ahead, Rice, eat her. You must be hungry, right? Of course, Rice responds obediently but has no intention of eating her. However, Margaret is so panicked she can't move. Help me! Someone help me! Margaret clings desperately to Joshua's neck, making him groan in pain. Somehow, the two of them manage to get to the rental car and try to drive off, but they step on the wrong pedal and crash into a pile of cow manure. The rental car is now filthy and smells horrible, inside and out. Without even realizing it, the two frightened people rushed out of the dairy farm. Rice, bread, noodle. Thank you. I love you. I hugged my beloved helpers tightly. A little distance away, Paul, who had brought Rice and the others to me, smiled with relief. Things didn't go well for Margaret and Joshua afterward. The rental car was in such a terrible state that the rental company was furious. They demanded that it be bought because it was no longer usable. Already in debt from the wedding and having paid me compensation, this must have been a severe blow. Moreover, Margaret was incapable of managing the household finances, and yet Joshua, not thinking, handed over his salary to Margaret because I had been managing it before, so they had no savings. In fact, they were in a situation where they were paying off one debt with another due to missed credit card payments. Joshua finally woke up and demanded a divorce from her. Margaret, desperate not to be abandoned, tore up the divorce papers Joshua brought, sometimes even eating them like a goat. He wanted to escape, but with no place left for him at work or at his parents' home, he had no choice but to return to Margaret. The only solace was that his parents were taking care of the children. Joshua's brother and his wife, who had no children, were even discussing adopting them. The children were innocent, and I hoped they could find happiness. Margaret and Joshua each separately pleaded, "Help me!" or, "It's his fault. I'm not to blame." But perhaps traumatized by the goats, they never set foot in the dairy farm. And so, I managed to secure peaceful and happy days. Rice, your beard is splendid today too. Paul laughed as he watched me play with the goats again. Nancy, you really love Rice, don't you? Of course, Rice is my savior. I'm kind of jealous. His slightly pouting face was adorable, and I moved a little closer. Of course, I'm grateful to you too, Paul. I am living vibrantly now because of him. Well, I'd like to get an answer soon. His thick fingers touched mine. Wanting to respond to that warmth, I held his large hand tightly. Rice bleated shortly as if teasing our closeness. Until just now, I was really wondering if this was the right moment, but it was my husband Bert's words that made up my mind. Standing tall with arrogance, he said, "Bring me a beer!" In front of him, I presented the divorce papers. Let's get a divorce. I've reached my limit. At the mention of divorce, Bert didn't show any confusion, just a calm face. How can he keep such a face? Am I just being naive? No, that's not it. Bert doesn't believe I would actually go through with the divorce. He thinks it's just a threat. Proof of that is Bert's aggressive response. Since you're the one bringing this up, you take care of our 6 kids. Don't expect any savings or child support from me. I've realized that no matter what, Bert always puts himself first. After signing the divorce papers, Bert threw them at me with a laugh, saying, "Here you go. I think I've really been patient until now. I've devoted my precious time to such a person, so nobody would oppose this divorce." Even though I've decided on the divorce, I still feel sad about Bert's selfish words and actions. But this is where it ends. His behavior will cast a shadow over his life from now on. My name is Caddy. I'm a 40-year-old housewife. I used to work as an employee at a certain company, but I quit due to health issues. I met Bert through an introduction from an acquaintance, and we later got married. Bert, who is 10 years older than me, is a very responsible and serious person. That Bert seemed like a wonderful person to me. I thought I could have a fulfilling life with him. Bert also said to me, "You're a wonderful woman. I want to be with you forever." There was no lie in his words, and I immediately accepted Bert's proposal. Life with Bert was sheer happiness. Although he wasn't much of a talker, we had very calm moments together. I'm glad I married him. Time passed, and our first child was born. "Caddy, you did well," Bert said, sending me words of appreciation and smiling kindly. That was a peak of happiness, now a fond memory. 2 years after our eldest son was born, our second child came, and a year later, our third. Now we have 6 children. With 6 kids, every day feels like a battlefield. Time flies by in the blink of an eye. Still, life with the kids is fun and full of happiness every day, never without smiles. Except for just one thing. Welcome back. Was today busy? Yeah. Our eldest son Ethan just graduated from high school this year. He's now working as an employee at a local food manufacturer. We really wanted him to go to college, but he didn't want to. When Ethan was about to graduate from high school, Bert and I suggested he go to college. But he refused, saying he had something he wanted to do. Bert, expecting him to go to college, was furious. The argument between the two began, and the room was filled with a tense atmosphere. Bert has always been uncontrollable once he gets angry. Perhaps because of his serious personality, he demands perfection in everything, even from those around him. Bert seems to lose his temper immediately when things don't go his way. This is no different with his children. That day, an enraged Bert lashed out at Ethan with harsh words, unbecoming of an adult. Eventually, Ethan fell ill from the shock and collapsed right there. "Ethan? Are you okay?" "Bert, that's way too much." "Too much? This kid, see, he won't understand unless you say it like this. Betraying my expectations. He owes his life to me, and he dares to betray me." Trying to approach Ethan again, Bert was stopped by me clinging onto him from behind. "Stop it. Let go. It's your coddling that's the cause of all this." Then Bert turned towards me and raised his hand high. Instinctively, I curled up, closing my eyes tightly. But Bert, shrugging me off, stormed out of the house. Before we married, I never thought Bert had this side to him. Sure, he always demanded perfection and could become verbally harsh when things didn't go as planned or were imperfect, but that was about it. I never imagined it could be this severe. Bert returned home when the children had all gone to bed, looking somewhat remorseful after cooling down. "Ethan asleep? Sorry about earlier. I just lost it. That's in the past now. But if you're going to apologize, apologize to Ethan, not me. He's working hard every day, isn't he? Shouldn't we be supporting him instead?" I couldn't forgive Bert's actions. Hardening my heart, I confronted him with harsh words. But then, I realized something. Bert wasn't getting my message. And this became the trigger for our lives to take a turn for the worse. 2 weeks passed. Bert constantly had a scowl on his face, and a heavy atmosphere pervaded our home. The children seemed to notice this too and naturally started avoiding Bert, hardly ever seeing him except at dinner time. This couldn't continue without risking the breakdown of our family. "The kids are scared, and I wish you could show a little more kindness," I said, only to be met with a sharp glare from Bert. "You're the one telling me this? It's your words and actions that led to this situation. And now you're blaming me? That's rich." Bert was still holding on to what I had said before. "I'm busy, unlike you, the housewife. Working at a major company is different from what the others do. And you, having lived such a boring life, should recognize that and choose your words more carefully from now on." Does he think he's the most important just because he works for a major company? Such an attitude is only going to make others see him as a nuisance. He can't see that, which is why he looks down on everyone else, including me. Actually, maybe Bert looks down on me the most. Especially, these last 2 weeks after the incident with Ethan have been particularly bad. "Hey, I come home tired from work. It's the wife's job to offer words of comfort first. Are the kids more important than your husband to you?" "That's not it, but..." Wait. Put your clothes on properly." Even as I spoke with Bert, the children, fresh out of the bath, would run around the room without dressing. Trying to get them dressed was futile. They wouldn't listen. "Are you even listening to me? Be quiet. It's irritating." Enraged that I prioritized the children over him, Bert swept items off the table in anger. Boxes of tissues and small personal items scattered across the floor. Startled by the unusual noise and scene, the children froze, looking at Bert with fear in their eyes. Ethan, who had been lounging on the sofa in the back living room, noticed the commotion and looked over. An uneasy atmosphere filled the house. But soon, Ethan took all the children to the back room, saying, "Let's go over there." My relief that the children were spared was short-lived. Bert grabbed me by the collar, shouting, "Don't you dare say that again," before storming off to the bedroom. It was the first time I felt fear towards Bert. One day, upon returning from work, Bert looked at me and said, "Isn't it strange? They're supposed to carry my blood, yet how did such failures come to be? Come to think of it, you dropped out, didn't you? That's why we have such failures for children." Mystery solved. Unbelievable words. How could he call his own children failures? And in a voice loud enough for all the kids to hear. I didn't care what he said about me. The fact he mocked me for being a dropout didn't matter. I could endure that. But I couldn't stand him speaking ill of the children. Especially not from their own parent. However, Bert's contempt continued. If I made dinner, he'd say, "This is what poor people eat, not something for an elite like me." Or on another day, he'd complain about the housework not being perfect. Coming home tired to be greeted by this messy, dirty entrance. "You're a housewife, aren't you? Shouldn't it be clean everywhere? Not just the entrance, but the hallways, windows, toilets, baths, everything. What's the reason for not cleaning perfectly? Explain it to me so I can understand." And he'd say these things intentionally in front of the children. This went on for 2 weeks. Bert seemed to enjoy watching my spirit break little by little. "I can't take this anymore." The children were sound asleep. Beside them, I was under a blanket, cursing my life. Why did I fall in love with this man? Why did I marry him? The more I thought, the more my heart raced. Tears flowed. Then, it happened. Suddenly, a gentle, somewhat low voice asked, "Are you okay?" I peeked out from under the blanket with a tear-stained face and saw Ethan looking at me with concern. "Mom." "Ethan. I'm sorry." Ethan seemed to understand everything with just that one word. He hugged me without saying a word, gently rubbing my back. Ethan's hands felt so big and warm. When did he grow up to be so admirable? "Mom, you've done a great job." No matter what Bert said, I had endured and tolerated it. Despite being scorned and looked down upon, I had persevered. But it was time to end that. Ethan's words of encouragement helped me make my decision. "Thank you. I'm all right now, so you go back to sleep, Ethan. You have an early day tomorrow." "Okay." Relieved by my words, Ethan returned to his room. Next to me, the children, unaware of Ethan's visit, slept on. Looking at their faces made me question my decision. But there was no turning back now. No, I had to make a decision. But how will we manage to live from here on out? My determination and anguish swirled in my mind. Then, Ethan came back into the room with a document in hand. "Mom, this." "What is this?" I scanned the document from top to bottom, handed to me by Ethan. If this was true, there might be a way out. I felt a sense of possibility. A feeling that it's going to be all right. The next day, I waited for Bert to return from work. But, of course, on such a day, Bert was late due to overtime, not returning even by 7 p.m. I had dinner with the children first, but he still hadn't returned. I was considering whether to bathe the younger children. "I'll do it," said Ethan, offering to take over. He knew what I was planning to do. "Thank you." Eventually, Bert returned around 9 p.m. Looking tired as usual from apparent overtime. "Hey, bring me a beer quick. If you know your husband is coming home tired, you should have the beer ready." How useless can a wife be? I had been wondering if this was the right moment, but Bert's words just now made up my mind. Standing boldly in front of Bert, who demanded a beer, I presented the divorce papers. "What? What's this?" "Let's get a divorce. I've reached my limit." Bert, faced with the word divorce, didn't show any confusion, just a calm face. How can he remain so composed? Am I just being naive? No, that's not it. Bert doesn't believe I would really go through with the divorce. He thinks it's just a threat. Proof of that, Bert spoke with confidence. "Since you're the one who started this, you take care of the 6 kids. Don't expect any savings or child support from me." It was clear that Bert always put himself first. After signing the divorce papers, Bert threw them at me with a laugh, saying, "Here. I think about how much I've endured until now. No one would oppose this divorce, given all the time I've dedicated to such a person." Even deciding on divorce, Bert's selfishness and attitude brought sadness. But that's as far as it goes. His actions would only cast a shadow over his own life from now on. That night, after confronting Bert with the divorce and while the children and Bert were asleep, I prepared to leave the house with Ethan. Ethan, knowing it would come to this, silently packed and prepared. Thanks to doing it together, we managed to leave the house early in the morning. Bert went to work as usual, but when he returned, no one would be here. That's when he would realize the situation he's in. The new apartment was about an hour's drive away, located a bit away from a residential area in a high-rise building. The children were thrilled the moment they stepped into the room. I never imagined we could live in a place like this. We ended up living in what's called a high-rise due to certain circumstances. All thanks to Ethan. A month has passed since the divorce. Unlike before, I no longer feel unreasonable stress. The children seem happier too. What was the point of our previous life? Life seemed so much more enjoyable, indicating just how awful living with Bert had been. But that's already in the past, and there's no use dwelling on it. Yet, Bert's selfishness wouldn't let me forget. After divorcing Bert and moving to the high-rise, Bert began calling incessantly. Again. I was getting fed up with Bert's calls. The children didn't seem to know who was calling, but as usual, only Ethan seemed to be aware. From Dad again? Yes, it's been intense lately. I can't ignore it anymore, can I? I can answer it. Mom, you're busy, and you don't have time to deal with Dad, right? Ethan was right. One of the reasons for moving here was a job opportunity. The company I had worked for before wanted me back. But dealing with Bert was something I had to handle myself. It's okay. I'll deal with him. Then, immediately after, a call from Bert came in. Was there something he so desperately wanted to say? It was unusual for him to keep contacting me like this. Hello? Hey, what's this all about? I wasn't informed about any of this. So now he noticed? I was going to say. Then paused, thinking maybe I should wait and see a bit longer. You always jump into things and get too heated. Try to be a bit more calm when you speak. But Bert, far from calming down, only grew more aggressive. Calm down. You think you can say whatever you want because it's not about you. You've caused a huge mess. That's why you need to explain what the huge mess is. If it's because of me, what exactly has gotten worse? Come on, you're not a child, and you're a big company employee, right? Then explain it clearly so everyone can understand. Maybe the mention of being a big company employee hit a nerve, as Bert briefly regained his composure, only to quickly lose it again and start on a completely different topic. Getting cocky, are you? Who do you think has allowed you to live comfortably up to now? It's all thanks to me. Why does the conversation always veer off in a completely different direction? I had a pretty good idea of what Bert was trying to say. Resigned, I decided to make things clear in a way my husband could understand. There's a lot I want to say, but... Okay, let me first explain the situation you're in. Why it has come to this. What? It's tiresome, but expecting anything more from Bert would be a waste of time. You're trying to say you've been kicked out of the house because we got divorced, right? That's right. It's all your fault. Yes. We don't need to go into that now. Just listen to what I have to say. Really pathetic. To think a 50-year-old can't even listen to others. It felt like I was explaining things to a child, making it as simple as possible. First, it's not my fault you were kicked out of the house. The rent and living expenses for that house were being paid by Ethan, not you. That can't be true. You were receiving living expenses from me every month, weren't you? Yes, I did receive them. $100, though. With 6 children and living in a decent apartment, what kind of husband only contributes $100 a month? If it weren't for Ethan, the rest of the family, excluding you, would be homeless by now. No, that's... Bert said. Back in the day, $100 was enough to live on, so you should manage. Explaining why he only contributed $100 to the household expenses. Naturally, $100 was nowhere near enough, so I reluctantly used my savings from before I was married to scrape by. Then one day, Ethan suddenly handed me some money. Use this. What? What is this? It's my salary for this month. From now on, I'll support us, so you don't have to worry. Save your money for the younger siblings. I was moved to tears. Ethan was thinking of the family more than anyone else. Since then, Ethan worked tirelessly every day to support our family. Now, with me divorced and Bert on his own, it was natural that he couldn't pay the rent or the living expenses. After all, neither I nor Ethan were there. If only he realized that this situation was serious, he could have done something about it. It's because you're too focused on playing around with women that things turned out this way. How do you know that? Ethan saw you. He was taken to a restaurant by his coworkers and saw you with a woman he didn't recognize. It was your favorite lady from that high-class club behind the station, right? Apparently, you've been lavishing her with a significant amount of money every month. All this information came from Ethan. Bert's momentum vanished completely, and he was utterly disheartened. However, my frustration with him was far from over. Just then, he said, "Help me." "Excuse me?" My promotion got cancelled. Despite working diligently for the company all these years, if things continue this way, I'll be overtaken by the juniors, and my peers will leave me behind. My life is over. It was a pitiful story. And what is he saying now, after all this time? It was clear from the time we were married that Bert wasn't going to be promoted. You seem to be misunderstanding something. Of course, you're not getting promoted. You act all high and mighty without being competent at your job. You blame your mistakes on your subordinates and dodge responsibility. Yet, you try to curry favor with your superiors. No company would promote someone like that. Confronted with the truth, Bert had nothing to rebut. Do you understand how wrong you were? Now, change your attitude and start living your life properly. I thought about pressing further, but realized that saying anything more would be pointless and was about to hang up. However, Bert, perhaps out of desperation, suddenly begged for reconciliation. "Let's start over." "Excuse me?" "Let's try again, you and I. This time, I'll properly take care of the children and give you my entire salary. We won't rely on Ethan's money. I'll support us. Let's forget everything and start anew, building a wonderful family and life together. We can do it. With the new me, we surely can. So, let's start over." Had he eaten something odd? His words sent chills down my spine. Ethan, listening nearby, looked more dismayed than I had ever seen him. "Do you even understand what you're saying? Starting over is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Even if you transformed into a wonderful person, it's impossible. No matter how much money you offer, it's impossible. Just hearing your voice makes it impossible. It's simply impossible. That's all. There's no way that's true. You just don't understand the risk of letting go of a big company employee like me." Big company employee, huh? I hadn't wanted to go this far for the sake of Bert's pride, but it seemed necessary to make him give up. "Listen, you always bring up being a big company employee, but do you even understand your current situation? Do you realize you're the top candidate for layoffs in the company? Or better yet, do you know where I work?" "Where?" "At N Corporation. The same company as you. I work there as the Chief of General Affairs. Though it's remote work." "What?" Bert must have never imagined that I was working as the Chief of General Affairs at the same company. Shocked, he murmured something unintelligible over the phone. I originally worked as a sales department manager at N Corporation, but the continuous busy days led to a deterioration in my health, and I resigned. Feeling down because I couldn't work, which had been my only joy, I was introduced to Bert by an acquaintance. Surprised to hear he worked at the same company, I wanted to say, "Me too." But Bert bragged so much about working at N Corporation that I ended up not saying anything. He kept bragging about it even after we got married. But now, knowing that I had been a manager at N Corporation and had taken the position of General Affairs Manager, his boasting had become meaningless. But why suddenly a General Affairs Manager? It's thanks to Ethan. Ethan's? The president of the company where Ethan works was a classmate of N Corporation's president. Through conversations between the presidents, Ethan's work ethic became a topic of discussion, and it was then revealed that I was Ethan's mom. The president of N Corporation personally sent me a letter through Ethan, asking me to come back. Thanks to Ethan's support, I decided to return to work. What surprised me more was that the president arranged for our family to live in the high-rise condo he used to live in. It was a gesture of gratitude for returning to N Corporation, but I was astonished to learn it was such a luxurious high-rise condo. It was rented out to us at a very low price, considering it was for the sake of the young children. I am deeply grateful to the president for allowing us to live in such an incredible place. That's the story. Then, Bert began to lose his mind over the phone, to the point it was unmistakable. I could hear Bert yelling in a voice I had never heard before, and while I couldn't make out the exact situation over the phone, it was clear there was commotion around him. Alongside that, there were also voices that sounded like multiple security guards saying, "Don't move!" A few minutes later, I heard the sound of police sirens, followed by a moment of silence, and then Bert's shouting alongside the shouts of police officers. Finally, the sound of the police sirens faded away, growing distant. I later learned from an acquaintance that Bert had caused a scene at the entrance of N Corporation during work and was warned by security guards. His defiant attitude led to a call to the police, and he was taken away. After being held for questioning, he was eventually released. Naturally, this incident led to his termination from the company, and now he is reportedly living on the streets without a home. But there's still something Bert needs to do for us. It involves paying alimony and child support. To ensure he pays these, we've hired a lawyer and are prepared for battle. We've caught Bert, who is now living on the streets, to demand alimony and child support. Bert is said to be working desperately every day to make these payments. The former big company employee is nowhere to be seen. As for me, I'm leading a busy life as an executive of N Corporation, working from home. Of course, I'm always surrounded by my young children. Balancing work and childcare is challenging, but I have Ethan, who is more reliable than anyone. Mom, I've bathed everyone, so it's your turn now. Thank you. Take your time. What I think now is that divorcing was truly the right decision. Had we forced ourselves to continue the marriage, not just my life, but also the lives of my children, would have been ruined. I'm only grateful to Ethan for leading us to make this decision. From now on, I plan to live happily with our family of 7.